What's going on, guys? Pansy here, and welcome to the 2025 Black Desert Online Grind Spot Guide, where I'm going to be going over all the best grind spots and telling you where you should be grinding right now. BDO is a constantly evolving game. They're always adding new grind spots, revamping old ones, and even adding alternates of the same grind spot, like Dekia spots, Dekia 2, Elvias, and stuff. So we've seen it happen a lot, and as you progress through the game with your gear, in terms of skill, or depending on your class, you'll be changing grind spot to grind spot. Sometimes it can get a bit confusing. So that's why I'm here, and I'm going to break it down in this video. We'll split this video into 4 sections. That's going to be early game, mid game, late game, and end game. Now for the early game, we're going to split that further into 3 sections because the 3 main pillars of an early game player, new players, or someone who's not too far into the game yet is going to be experience grinding, potion grinding, and silver grinding. So experience to get your character leveled up to 61, 62, wherever you're aiming for. Then the potion grinding, because you need your infinite potions. You could buy them, but depending on the price, it might make sense for you to grind them early. But more on that when we get there. Before we begin, it's important for you to know a few disclaimers. If I were to tell you a certain amount of money you should be making, it's very likely you're going to be off, because there are a lot of variables in how much money you're going to be making per hour. First, skill. Skill is a massive factor. Someone more skilled with 15 less APU can match you, and trash loot can beat you, given that there's no cap restricting them. But skill is such an important thing, and something that you develop over a long period of time as you play the game. Then there's gear. Obviously, more gear, more stats, more damage, right? But also other things like having 5 high-tier pets, your food buffs, your elixirs, perfume buffs, tent buffs, alchemy stones, crystals, artifacts and light stones, drop rate buffs, and even the class you choose versus the grind spot you're grinding at. Some classes excel at grind spots while other classes don't, because maybe it's the mobility, maybe it's the type of protection you need, maybe it's the burst requirement. There's a lot of variables. So I'm not going to just tell you how much silver you're supposed to be making at each grind spot. Instead, I'll try to match it to a certain amount of gear you should have before entering that spot. But just know, you're going to look at garmod.com and you're going to see some numbers. They can be greatly varying depending on the player and a whole list of variables. All right, guys, let's kick things off with the early game. So as I said, early game is going to be split into 3 sections. First, the XP grind spots, then the potion grind spots, and finally the silver grind spots. An early game player is someone who just started out in seasonal. So with seasonal, you're going to progress your gear in the Tuvala system. The Tuvala armors, weapons, and accessories. They're pretty easy to get all to pen. So capping out on seasonal gear is not a difficult task. However, if you're a new player, you might need to figure things out along the way, watch some videos, read some guides, but whatever it may be, you're likely going to need to grind. First, let's start off talking about XP grind spots. Sure, you can go and get P level to 61 or 62, whatever, but realistically, you might not have any friends playing the game. You might not have anyone who's going to just boost you like that. So you need to know how to take care of yourself and level your own characters. I'm going to go over my 5 favorite spots that I think are really good for a new player to be at in terms of XP in the early game with minimal gear. All right, first up is Polyforest. This is a place that you can level up a character to 56, 57 really quick. Then it kind of slows down, but the money is pretty average and mediocre for what you can earn in seasonal. However, it is pretty decent XP, like I said, and it also drops Atanas' elements. Then I like to also grind at Trader's Graveyard. Here I can take a character all the way to 60 or 61 even. It also drops Atanas' element, but it's pretty well known for its XP. If you have a party or a group of players you want to grind with, so 2 to 3 people, you can also try a Murmox. This is a bit of a classic spot, an old spot, not really much going for other than, it can drop Atanas' element, not the greatest rate, but average money, but you can grind with others like your friends, so if you want to try it out. Recently they did buff quite a few spots to have a better XP rates. There's a lot of spots out here which wouldn't really bother going for XPs like Sulfur Mine or Pilaku or anything, but over here in the Medea region, this is actually a really good spot. Cadres is a pretty solid amount of money, but it's also an Atanas element spot, and it's recently got buffed with XP, so I think that's a really good spot to consider. Crescent Shrine is also decent, but I would give it to Cadres. Easier to access. This is a bit more further out. I had to go through the desert, which is a little less convenient, right? You also have a few spots out in out here. You have Centaurs. Centaurs is a good spot for cash. It doesn't drop a Tennis elements or anything, but recently they did buff the XP rates. I haven't tried it out, but it is a spot you can go for in terms of cash, and it's pretty commonly grinded spot in seasonal. And of course, Gahaz, they're probably the star of seasonal early game grinding. Pretty low AP requirement, high mob density, and also recently got buffed for EXP. However, no Tennis elements. But all of these spots are really good. They could get you to level 61 with pretty minimal trouble. Probably Polyforce is the one I would get most annoyed grinding. I get bored there really quick, but considering there are other benefits to grinding all the spots that I mentioned, you know, either you're going for a Tennis elements or pure XP, or even going for a combination of money and a Tennis element. So there are a lot of options here in terms of what you can grind for XP. So you can definitely consider these spots. Now let's talk about the infinite potions. So you have the infinite HP potion and the infinite mana potion. Now the thing about these is that they do not share the same price. So you can buy them, but there is a bit of a price disparity for them. So if you look at the difference between Ornate's Spirit Essence and Odir Spirit Essence, in NA, Ornate's is about 13 bill-ish. Yeah. So you see it here, it's in the 13 bills. Then Odor Spirit Essence, it's a bit more expensive because the spots where you get the pieces to combine to make the Odor Spirit Essence, they're a lot more annoying to grind, and I'm going to explain them now. So buying it is an option. However, think of it like this. If you are someone who's going to be grinding at a spot which, you know, could earn you 500 mil an hour, dropping it down to around 400 mil an hour and getting drops for the infinite potions could be a worthwhile gain rather than grinding it later down the line. You know, either you're going to be buying it straight up or you go back to these old spots to grind. It's going to be an even greater loss the longer you wait, because you could be earning a lot more money and spending your money elsewhere later. Let's start off with the infinite HP potion, and then we'll move on to the infinite mana potion. So here are the spots where you grind for the main pieces of the infinite HP potion. So firstly, we have Bloodwolf Settlement. This is a pretty decent spot for cash, pretty low requirements here, and you can get the pity pieces for the Cactinac here. Where is it? The Ash Half Moon Cactinac, and pity pieces are the Bloodwolf's Oath. So money here is pretty decent for its level. It's not the best in seasonal. You can get about 300 to 400 mil at the peak efficiency, I'm assuming, but that is considering if you give value to the pity pieces as well as the main drop. So it's not exactly 300 mil silver. So don't expect to be getting liquid 300 mil, 400 mil silver here or in any of these early end spots. There is a bit of a disclaimer there and a catch to those numbers. Next is the Sharkon Necropolis. Here you get the Panacea, Sharkon's Panacea. The thing about this spot is there are two variants of it. There's a daytime and there is a nighttime. Yep. Here. So the Sharkon Necropolis, it changes during the daytime and the nighttime. During the daytime, there's just a bunch of mobs all laid out around here, and you know, you're going pack to pack and just trying to nuke them down. However, the money here is not very good, and the drop rate isn't that great either. It could be a bit of a pain to grind here, and of the HP potion spots, this is not a very fun one compared to like Blood Wolves and stuff. So I would consider only grinding here at nighttime. Nighttime is more money. The way it functions is different. There are these tombstones where you can activate the mob to spawn, so it's a singular mob rather than a bunch of little mobs where you're running pack to pack just mowing down hundreds of mobs. So it's a better place to grind at night. Then you have Tooth Fairy Cabin. This is a Forest Roneros area. So over here, pretty decent amount of rotations for you guys to do. The money isn't the best here either, but it's not terrible. You know, you could probably get away with about 250, 300 mil silver there, but not the biggest gain in terms of money, but it's a decent spot to grind compared to like Sharkon Day. So then let's move on to the infinite mana potion. So for the infinite mana potion, only one spot is really good to grind. That's going to be the Mancham Forest. Pretty decent money, you know, a good amount of rotations around here. Not terrible. Over here, you'll get the Narc's Crimson Tier and the PvP Narc's Solace. Next two spots are not very good. They're not high in money and they're a pain to grind. So I recommend putting your weeklies into this. I recommend grinding for Atenesis elements instead of these. So the first one is in Narvan Steppe. So yeah, the mobs that drop these, they can be dropped from mobs, but very rarely, but mostly you'll get the pity and the big drop from butchering for the most part. When you kill the mobs, you have to tan them with a tanning knife. The Pherenicas and Belladonna Elephants, they're the main targets for you guys. Like I said, it's a very slow and arduous process. Once upon a time, you needed a life skill gear and life skill mastery. Now you don't need any they adjusted the drop rate so that life skill mastery doesn't affect the drop rate of these items, the Voltara's Clairvoyance and the Voltara's Memory. Instead, they buffed the drop rate to a point where it's going to be the equivalence of having 2k mastery. While there were buffs that happened later down the line, it's still a pain to do, and it's not a very fun activity. Same as the next one. This one's going to be out here in Duvenkroon area, in the Drigan area. So you have Shira Ruins here. They drop the Marktanon's Gland and the Kazvaryak's Venom. I can't even say that. Yeah, this one is a pain in the ass to grind too. Very low silver per hour compared to other spots, as well as it's just not a fun grind. A lot of trash here. It's so annoying. So when it comes to the Voltara's Clairvoyance and the Marktanon's Gland, it's better to go for the Atanas' Elements. So what are the Atanas' Elements? These are basically a catch-all pity piece that you can exchange for any of the other pity pieces in the game. So over here, if you go into your currency exchange tab and scroll down to it, you'll find it here. So it's basically a one-to-one exchange. This alleviates the issue for spots like the two that I just mentioned, that they're very annoying to grind, they're not fun, and you have a lot of options in terms of where you can get good amount of Atanas' Elements drops. So going over the Atanas' Element spots, like I said, guys, a lot of this is just going to be oriented around grinding for the infinite potions, but you know, maybe you make and sell infinite potions for money or whatever you're doing. So there is an amount of silver that's tied to these items, these Atanas' Elements. They do have some inherent value to them, even if you can't immediately liquidate them. So let's go over the Atanas' Elements grind spots. All in all, the spots that drop these is Polyforest, Trader's Graveyard, Desert Naga Temple, Titium Valley. You have Miramok's Ruins, Bashim's Base, Kadri Ruins, Crescent Shrine, Fadus Habitat, and Prodi Cave. Where the heck is Prodi Cave? Somewhere around here. There we go. Yeah, we rarely ever go there anymore. All in all, there are a lot of spots that drop Atanas' Elements, but the best ones, in my opinion, are going to be Kadri. Kadri has a good balance between silver earned as well as Atanas' Elements. It has a pretty high drop rate of Atanas' Elements compared to other spots. Polyforest also has a decent drop rate. Once again, less silver, but more XP there. Then you have Fadus Habitat. This was buffed recently for XP. Money is okay, mid, but you know, a pretty decent amount of Atanas' Elements from them. You can consider doing some of the cheesier old school grinds like Nagas and Titium. They have a okay amount of drop rate according to Garmot.com in terms of the Atanas' Elements, but you know, the silver isn't the best there. Same with Trader's Graveyard. You get a good amount of XP, an average number of Atanas' Elements from here. Pretty decent number actually, but in terms of money per hour, not the best. So personally, I'd lean towards the Kadri side. Crescent Shrine is also pretty good. It just falls behind Kadri in terms of money a little bit. So personally, since Kadri is more accessible, it's easier to get to compared to going all the way out to Crescent Shrine. That's what I lean towards. All right, guys, now let's talk about early game silver grinding spots. We talked about the potion grinding spots and the leveling spots. Now let's just focus purely on silver per hour. We're going to start off with the low AP and then work our way up to the end of early game, which is going to be around full Pentavala. So starting things off, let's take a look at Desert Naga Temple. We touched a little bit about this in the potion grinding spots because this is a pretty decent place to grind Atanas' Elements, but it's also decent cash for its level in the very early stages of the game. You have a lot of mobs over here. It's a very high density area and it has a lot of rotations, but I doubt it's going to be crowded this day and age anymore. Next up, we have the Gahaz Bandit's Lair. This is going to start at around 140 AP. This is an aggro spot. That means you can use your Agris Fever and get a lot more trash loot and money per hour. This is a pretty good spot and it's going to be a pretty comfy grind because it has a lot of mob densities and a pretty decent number of rotations as well. Then taking it a little bit further at 180 AP, we have the Centaurs. So Centaurs was a very good spot for a long time and it was kind of broken, but now it's a decent spot. Nothing too crazy, but it does require special type of classes, those with very high mobility, as well as you need a lot of drop rate and other buffs for it to be that goated high-end grind spot that people used to brag about. But even now, it's a pretty decent spot when you're at that AP range or a little bit higher, and you can grind in that large area with a mobile class. So less mob density, higher distance to cover, but all in all, pretty decent for the early stages. Then you have a Sharikon at nighttime. So Sharikon Necropolis, specialty about this is that the grind spot changes during the day and night. During the day, it's just a bunch of mobs around, pretty high mob density, but it's not the best spot to be grinding for money. So that all changes at night. The entire grind spot changes, where instead of going pack to pack and killing mobs, you're going to be activating these tombs, and it's going to spawn a really strong mob and you're going to kill that. It's a very aggressive efficient spot, as well as decent money per hour when you do factor in that it's dropping the potion pity pieces as well. But otherwise, still a decent place to be grinding if you are grinding for the potion. Then you have Khartuga. Khartuga was one of my all-time favorites back in the day. I used to grind here, and it was a great spot. It was deep inside a cave over here, and you had to open the gate in order to get in and stuff. And yeah, it's a beautiful spot. I like the aesthetics in there. But this is a really good money spot as well. It is an aggro spot. You do need a little bit more AP and DP. This is going to be recommended that you'll be a full Pentavala at this point when you're grinding here. The specialty here is that it drops a large variety of artifacts. When I needed ranged accuracy artifacts, I actually came here and grinded with almost 700 gear score. So it is a spot which has a little bit of a specialty to it. It also drops those Elcars, which can be turned into the Elcar crystals. All in all, pretty decent spot even now. And it's one of those spots that was like, it gives you the true essence of BDO's grind spots. You know, after going through all the early game spots, it was a nice change. And finally, let's close out the early game with Altar Imp. So when you are on the Elvia servers, you click this icon at the top right, the Elvia Realm button, to switch to an Elvia server. These Serendia spots are going to change, and a few other spots in the game change to a higher end spot. That's going to be Altar Imps. You can be there with full Pentavala pretty comfortably. So at least 220 AP, I believe, is the recommendation. This is a duo grind spot. It is a pretty decent amount of money per hour when you factor in the shards. You'll need those blue shards that they drop there in order to make your cups. So it is a good place to be grinding, because you're going to need those later down the line to get the cups to empower your accessories. So pretty good spot. All right, now let's get started with the mid-game silver grinding spots. You've graduated from seasonal. You're moving on from your Tavala gear. You got your free pen black star, free Tet black star. You do your deck Tavala enhancing to get another pen black star and a Tet Karazad accessory, hopefully your necklace. And now you're seeing your gear score jump up pretty quickly. Once you get your pen boss gears, you're going to start caffering them, and you're going to see your DP skyrocket once you do start doing that. And also in the mid game, you'll probably pick up Tet Vahas or Tet distortion earrings, and that's going to make your AP spike up as well. So this is a beautiful stage of the game where you're going to see progression pretty quickly, and along with that, you're going to see the grind spots I recommend. They're also going to spike up in terms of DP requirement or AP requirement. So this is going to cover the mid game spots, and let's get started right here in Elvia. So the first spot I like to call out in the mid game grinding spots is going to be Swamp Fogans. So in the Elvia Serendia Elvia spots, these are going to be special for you to grind in the mid game, because you're going to be collecting these shards. There are three types of shards: the red shard, blue shard, and the yellow shard. So that's going to be the Tearful Knight, Drained Knight, and the Furious Knight. And these in certain combinations are going to be used as material to create your cups. So those shards have inherent value even if you don't see it right away, because you know you have the shards and you can't liquidate it until you make the cups. They do hold a certain amount of value. Along with that, you'll get other material here which can be sold for a high amount of silver, like the Seed of Void, as well as Okiara's Tide. In addition to that, there is also the Revived River necklace, which is very expensive right now, 238 million on the NA marketplace. That's crazy. All things considered, along with the trash loot, Swamp Fogans is pretty nice. Some people might ask about the Swamp Nagas. The reason why it falls behind Fogan so much is that their necklace is a lot less valuable. That is going to be only 36 mil. So Swamp Fogan's a great place to get started once you're right out of seasonal. Then you have Sakraya. So this is an OG spot that I like to recommend. I'm able to grind this on seasonal as well. You can start it earlier too, but it's about efficiency and making the most amount of silver, right? So Sakraya Underwater Ruins, it's a way out here. Best way to get here is like if you're in Valia, you use a traveler's map and teleport to Ilia Island, run over here and just swim over here until your node name says Sakraya Underwater Ruins, and then you can just use the escape function when you hit escape. So that'll port you down there. So pretty dope grind spot here, because this was a spot I lived at for a long time. In terms of the loot, you get a decent amount of Caphras, but these Abyssal Essence are really nice because you can use them to make frenzy drafts. You might need your own supply. It's going to be pretty useful in a lot of spots. So primarily it's trash loot, Blackstone's Caphras, and those, and you'll get the occasional Tungrad rings as well. You know, they're holding their value. They're over 100 mil each right now, so not bad. So it's a Cry Underwater Ruins. It says about 230 AP. You know, I recommend you graduate from season so you can be as efficient as possible. I was able to grind it with full Pentvala, no problem though. Next, let's skip up in terms of the gear score. Let's go to Jade Starlight Forest. So Jade Starlight Forest is an aggro spot, and I loved grinding here. This is where you get the Flame of Frost, which is used to create the Slumbering Origin armor for your helmet. That's the Labresca's helmet. So it has pity pieces, which are the Embers of Frost, which you can sell, and along with the Flame of Frost you can sell, but they're pretty available on the marketplace right now. So if you are looking for the flames, you don't have to grind here, but it is a good spot because you're able to use your aggro efficiently. You get a good amount of trash loot here, and that accounts for a pretty sizable amount of your money. And along with that, you have the Iridescent Lightstone drop. These are really expensive right now. They're all the way up at 2 bill. So all in all, I think this is still a solid grind spot. The recommendation here is 260 AP, 350 DP. You can get away with less DP here. Just don't get hit by silly stuff and you'll be more than fine. But Jade Starlight Forest is still a pretty solid spot. Next up is going to be Red Orcs, Elvia Orcs right here, Orc Camp. So this is where you're going to get Shard of the Furious Knight drops, and you know, the best place to get them, I believe. And also you get a lot of cash here. It is a good grind spot for silver. You know, there's a lot of mobs here, and you can take multiple small rotations together. And the specialty here is you have to break the prisons, and by breaking 5 prisons, it'll debuff all the mobs and you'll be able to blast through them really quick. It really debuffs their DP. So it's a really comfy grind spot in my opinion once you get the hang of it, and it's a spot that will last you quite a bit, you know, through the mid game. Recommendation for Orc Camp is 260 AP and 340 DP. Then taking another jump up in the early game, right? People might be thinking, Pansy, why are you calling this early game? Well, that's just how the game is now. It's pretty easy to get to this point. This is the end of the early game, close to the end. So, you know, take it as you will. You can call it the end game spot, but I don't think so. This is going to be Gyfin Razia Temple, Gyfin Underground. So the recommendation here is 290 AP and 380 DP. The main moral of the story when you're grinding here is when the mobs do the red telegraphed attacks, do not let them hit you and do not take a back attack, otherwise you'll be more than fine. So over here you'll get a lot of cash through the trash drops, the trash loot, but along with that, the specialty about this spot is that it drops a lot of Caphras. When I was grinding there, I used to get over 100 an hour. And also another specialty about it is it's an excellent spot to grind for XP. You want to get your character up to level 63 and 64 so you don't look like a noob in front of your friends, then this is the spot for you. Pop all your XP buffs and you will see the XP go by really quick. So Gyfin Razia Temple, also a very nice spot for money per hour as well as XP and Caphras. In the mid game, Caphras are your friend because you're progressing your pen boss gears, but by the time you get there, you're probably already towards the end of the grind. But at the same time, you might need it for like your offhand or something, you know? All right, finally, let's go to the last one here. This is going to be a Honglum base. So the AP requirement is quite low here, but the DP requirement is also pretty high, 360 DP. Now, people would say, should I mention this before Gyfins or after? Personally, I decided to mention this after because I feel this has the place for more potential in terms of money, depending on your server. Depending on prices on your server, it could earn you more money because look at all of these crystals that drop here, you know, the wands and bonds over here. In a lot of cases, these bond crystals are worth a good amount of money. Also, you get a faint origin of dark hungers, and you know, these are 500 mil a pop, but you could just save them because you do need origin of dark hungers to progress in this game, because that's how you build easy fail stacks. And I love these, and you know, they're not as good as the original origin of dark hunger, but these are basically half the price and give you half the fail stack. So definitely have a place and worth grinding and saving up, or you can liquidate and use them for money per hour. Also, you get some Caphras here and trash loot. So all in all, Honglum base is a spot that you can actually sit out for a pretty long time until you get to one of the end game spots. So Honglum base and Gyfins are probably the peak of mid game in my opinion. All right guys, now welcome to the late game. Now things start getting a bit interesting. Your gear is going to change considerably. You probably already rock full Slumbering Origin armors, but you're going to start working your accessories toward full Kharazats. You're going to probably get 1 or 2 sovereign weapons along the way as well. And all of these are going to require an immense amount of cron stones. And to feed that never-ending pit of hunger for cron stones, you're going to need solid grind spots to support you along the way. So let's get started. All right, kicking things off in the late game grind spots is Izrahid Highlands. This is an Agris Fever spot and an excellent spot because it has a lot of valuable drops here. Firstly, the Kabuas. You get the main drop as well as the pities. Kabuas are important as hell for late game and end game players because of the amount of monster DR you get, and also you get a pretty nice amount of monster AP and HP and stamina. So these are absolutely important for PvE. Without these, you'll feel a lot squishier. So if you do have these, if you did buy them and you don't need to grind for them, then you can get away with coming here earlier, maybe even 4-1 DP. Maybe might need a little bit more if you're squishy or taking a lot of hits. Just dodge, right? Anyway, in terms of DP, I'd say you can get started here as soon as 301 or, you know, as the game says, 310 plus. But personally, I think you can get here a bit sooner. In terms of other notable drops, you got the Flame of Resonance. It's the only Slumbering Origin Flame, which has a decent value to it. Higher cap there. So pretty nice. You got the Embers of Resonance, which are also worth a pretty penny. Along with that, you can get a Forgotten Limbo Seal to get some Debo rings. Other than those notable drops, you get a lot of trash loot. It's an Agris Fever spot, so naturally. So all in all, it's a pretty solid grind spot, which will last you a pretty long time. You can grind here well towards the end game before you even switch, but we're still going to talk about the other great spots you have available to you in the late game. So there's a lot of variety once you get to the 310 AP mark. So I'm just going to get started here with Dokkaebi Forest. Not a huge fan of this, but you know, you do get drops like the Bond Crystals and the Faint Origin of Dark Hunger, just like in Honglam Base. So if you do like going for those bigger drops as well as collecting these Faint Origin of Dark Hunger, not a terrible spot. It's a pretty decent amount of silver per hour here, all things considered. It's recommended you have about 410 AP, 420 DP. Yeah, you can get away with less DP, trust me. All right, next up is Dekia Cadres and Dekia Crescents. I like to book these together, but Dekia Crescents is actually a bit more in terms of money per hour. However, Cadres is pretty accessible. So let's go to Dekia Cadres first. Recommendation here is 310 AP and 401 DP. You can get here with a little less AP, no worries. But overall, it's an Agris spot as well as a place where Debo rings drop. So if you are going for those, you know, might as well. However, all in all, in terms of money per hour, it's a pretty solid spot. Dekia Crescents also recommended at 310, 401. However, once again, a little bit less AP doesn't really harm you. Other than that, it's pretty similar in terms of the Cadres loot table. You know, you still get the Debos and the Limbos, but you do track onto a little bit more cash per hour compared to Dekia Cadres. This is also an Agris Fever spot. While we're on the Dekia bandwagon, I got a couple more for you. You have Cyclops, Dekia Cyclops. This spot actually used to be extremely broken maybe a year and a half ago, I believe. But right now it still holds its place because the Dawn earrings are pretty valuable. They're currently worth 250 mil each here in the NA market. So overall, solid spot, the Dekia Cyclops. Then you have Dekia Thornwood. This place used to be an immensely broken spot because Ominous Rings used to be over 300 mil each, but now they're down to 75. However, it's still a pretty solid spot overall in terms of money per hour. Now swinging back towards Elvia. So in Calphion Elvia, we have Troll Habitat. So Troll Habitat is a place that has held its place in terms of a solid grind spot for a long time. Also known as Quint Hill in Elvia. Over here, it's a solid place for trash grinding. The amount of money you make here is kind of dependent on the Crystal of Despair. It's very rare you get disto drops here, so don't even worry about that. However, if you are playing a class which is very single target burst focused, it does really well here. You know, some classes are more oriented on large scale AoE, blasting weak mobs apart, and others are more attuned to that single target DPS, high burst style of gameplay. So those kind of classes actually excel here in Quint Hill. So this is a place you can grind for a very long time as well. And finally, the last spot I'd like to touch in the main game. Some people will call this the end game. However, I disagree. I think this is a pretty comfy grind spot. That is Tungrad Ruins. Tungrad Ruins was a favorite spot of mine. I think I grinded over 100 Essence of Devourings over here. But you also get a decent drop rate for the Limbo Seals, and also you can farm for the Telescope if you're interested. You also get Cowdeer Fragments. I got like 20 of those. I really should liquidate them. But in terms of AP DP, 320 AP and 410 DP is recommended here. I'd like to flag flex that around a bit. You can be here. I think I was grinding here at 316 AP. Around that DP should be fine. I'd say you do blast through the mobs really quickly. You focus on the visionary mob and then the rest just blow up. So pretty comfy grind spot all in all. Even now it tracks pretty high in terms of the money per hour in terms of late and end game spots together. And of course the Origin of Dark Hunger drops here along with the Essence of Devouring. So Origins of Dark Hunger are really important for your progression in the late game. You need a lot of high level stacks to enhance your Kharazads, your sovereign weapons. So that's a lot of fail stacks you need, and you build them up to those really high levels with Origins of Dark Hungers. These items made progression in the late game a lot easier. You no longer have to fail stack miserably to get those 250 to 300 stacks anymore. It's pretty easy to just buy them outright. All right, that concludes the late game grind spots. And finally, we have one section left. That is going to be the end game grind spots. And now you are in real deep. We are at the end game. You are no stranger to the grind. You are no stranger to the Cronstone requirements. So why stop now? Go all the way to hard cap. Let's go, baby. So starting things off is going to be Dark Seekers. Now I actually like to agree with the AP requirement here. Around 330 AP is good because you'd like to hit that soft cap. In terms of the drops here, let's take a moment to observe everything here. So this used to be a spot where a lot of us grinded for our 8-door shoes, then they reworked it so it would be a higher end spot. Now it is a really solid Agris Fever spot. You get the telescope drops, you get Kabuas, you get Ember of Resonance and the Flame of Resonance here. You also get Limbos. So there's a lot of things going for it. On top of that, you get a lot of money through the trash loot. You have to be pretty efficient. You got to be a strong burst class. You have to have a pretty good clear speed for it to be that peak level grind spot in terms of end game money. And in terms of DP, this used to be a spot when it first came out. As long as you didn't get hit, it was a pretty cheap spot. Not anymore. Don't come here with super low DP. You will die. I died a lot with 426 DP on my witch. My mystic has fared better. Haven't died on her yet, but I do get chunked. Like suddenly sometimes I go from 100 to like 15% HP in just one tick. It's pretty dicey. So make sure you do have at least all try Slumbering Origin armors when you get here. 330 AP I think is a fair assessment here. So all in all, solid grind spot. It's going to be one of your primary aggro spots in the end game once you get here. Then you have Dolan's 2. Where the heck are you? All right, here. So Dekia Olins 2, Dekia 2 Olins, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, this is a solid grind spot right here. So overall, in terms of your party grind spots, this is peak. It's only a 3-person grind spot, but if you want to play with your friends, this is the peak you will reach in terms of friendship in BDO. Outside of Ataraxian. But anyway, in terms of money per hour, this is solid. This is peak end game. You have to have a really good party. Everyone needs to be locked in order to hit those really high numbers. But by the time you're grinding here, recommended you have 340 AP and once again 426 plus DP. And yeah, I think that is a very agreeable amount of AP and DP. You all need to be very attuned to your class, really good in terms of efficiency and DPS. But other than that, you can get a lot of money here in terms of trash loot. And of course, where's that merchant ring piece? Shouldn't they have that here? I think that's kind of why people grind here, isn't it? But yeah, getting a merchant ring drop here is peak. That is one of the difficult ones to get because it is a party grind spot you have to go after. It is a Dekia 2 spot. You get the rare artifacts for your rare PvP artifacts, the evasion and DR ones here as well. Debo earrings are the most valuable of the Debo accessories. They are the most annoying to grind, and yeah, they hold their value. They're considerably more expensive than the rings, belt, and the necklace right now. So they too have value, especially if you're an enhancer for profit. And there's these other crystals here which are okay. Some of them are, they're okay because you can use them for yourself when you die and replace them. I don't know why, but for me the Crystal of Precise Destruction breaks more than any, and I'm thankful for that because they're min priced on the marketplace. So yeah, in addition, limbo drops and Caphras and trash loot. So all in all, in terms of money per hour, solid spot. Get that ring piece. Next up, also at 340 AP, 426 DP recommendation, we have the Golden Pig Cave. So they're telling you that you need 438 DP. Yeah, screw them. No, 426 DP, more than enough, I'd say. So there are two types of the golden pig caves here. Sorry, wrong one. But both of them have the same requirement. In terms of grinding here, fortunate pig cave is going to have a lot more drops to offer, and it's going to be more money per hour. But the regular unfortunate, or the unlucky, whatever you want to call it, the regular pig cave, it's also still a pretty solid place to grind. In terms of money per hour, it's still up there, better than a lot of the other spots. So just a high requirement, 340 plus AP. So yeah, whenever the main fortunate pig cave is not open, you can still come and grind the regular golden pig cave. You just go to the node manager there and then pay your way in, and you should be good. While we're here, let's talk about the fortunate pig cave. This is going to be a lot more money per hour by a pretty considerable amount. This is where you can get bond crystal drops here, which add to your money per hour. I gotten one, you know, easy one bill right there, right? So while it's open, you can grind here and it's good money, and one player will hit the jackpot, and at that point that player will get a big payday, as well as the grind spot closes and it goes back to only having the regular pig cave available. So all in all, golden pig cave, a solid place to be grinding. It's one of the most lucrative spots now, both the regular one and the fortunate one, and it's going to be one of your regular spots you'll be grinding towards the end. All right guys, that's it for this grind spot guide. Listen, remember to keep in mind whenever you're looking at garmot.com or watching a video online and seeing how much trash loot other people are making, everyone's at a different stage in the game, different stage in their skill, in terms of familiarity in the class. You know, there are a lot of variables which go into grinding in BDO and how much silver you earn. So just be cognizant that, hey, listen, you might not be making that much trash loot, but it's a constant progression. Whichever grind spot you're grinding at, there are small min-maxing things that you can be doing to make your trip between packs shorter, maybe more efficient rotations for the layout of the mobs, how they're spread apart and such. So there's a lot of micro details that go into it, and you know, it's a progression. You get better over time. So every hour you spend, try to find ways to make more trash loot and push yourself and improve, and soon you'll start seeing yourself hitting those high-end trash loot numbers as well. So, you know, take it at your own pace, practice, and most of all, enjoy. Have fun with the game. If grinding becomes a chore, then take a break, my dude. Go fish. Right? Anyway, hope this video helped you guys. I've been meaning to modernize my grind spot guide for a while, and I hope you know, it points you guys in the right direction if any of you guys have been wondering where you should be grinding. If it did help you and you like my video, please do like, comment, and subscribe. Check me out at twitch.tv/I'mPansy. I've been streaming regularly and bringing the YouTube back as well, so I hope to see you guys there. If you need any gear advice or anything, I'm your guy. And if you want to support me, the best way to do so is to share this video with your friends and on Discord. With that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.